How rich was Elliot Ludwig to have built a mega factory that extended 300 meters underground? How much did it cost to build the entire Playtime Co. factory? The truth, friends, is that it cost a fortune. We could say that Elliot Ludwig would be Elon Musk's best friend today. But why don't we break down exactly how much Playtime Co. cost? And brace yourselves, because after watching this video, you're going to feel poor. I'm poor. Let's start with the land on which Playtime Company was built. Obviously, a huge amount of space was needed for a factory of this size, including the parking lot. On average, a toy factory like this requires between 7 and 10 hectares of land. So let's say that Playtime Company had approximately 9 hectares in total. When it was built, the lands were incredibly cheap, costing around $1,000 per hectare, a total cost of approximately $9,000. That might not seem like a lot, but wait until we calculate Chapter 1. First, we have the reception, the office where visitors were received before entering the factory. Although it was only a 50 square meter room, the construction alone, raising walls, adding a roof, and preparing the space could have cost around $30,000. But the real expense came from the windows, doors, electricity, furniture, and decoration, adding another $39,000, which brings the total cost of this small office to almost $70,000. Then we have the famous gift shop. Although it looks small, just the construction could have cost $25,000. But things like glass display cases, shelving, lighting, and cash registers added more. $52,000, bringing the total to $77,000. And finally, the security room. Even though it was only 30 square meters, its construction had cost around $25,000. But the monitors, security cameras, and wiring significantly increased the cost, bringing the total to $77,000. So just the entrance of Playtime Company already cost more than $224,000. And we're just getting started, because to this we have to add additional expenses such as permits, extra security, cleaning, and setting, so that the place felt like a magical toy factory. With all this included, the total cost of the entire entrance was approximately $315,000. Remember, this was only where visitors took the first step. Then we continue to the lobby, where a giant Huggy Wuggy watches us. This area has 6 important rooms, but let's start by calculating how much the lobby itself cost. We don't know exactly how much it cost to create Huggy Wuggy. But if you want a separate video where we calculate the cost of each Playtime Company toy like Mommy Longlegs, Joey the Dog Man, or even a realistic Poppy, say it in the comments. This lobby covered approximately 50 square meters with a statue and a dome-shaped glass ceiling. It was most likely tempered glass, which alone could cost about $40,000. In the center of the lobby was a large Playtime Company sign, probably made of painted metal, adding another $7,000. With the additional decorations, this lobby cost approximately $55,000. Then we moved on to the 6 important areas. We haven't seen most of these, but could we estimate a price based on the possible equipment sizes they need? Test area, $138,000. It is estimated to occupy about 100 square meters, including its machinery. Innovation area, $165,600. Further ahead, we find the theater, an area of approximately 930 square meters. Its construction and equipment would have a cost of $1.5 million. The cafeteria, $110,400. The office system, $138,000, including computers, security systems, and maintenance equipment. The energy room, $69,000. And finally, the Make-A-Friend hallway. Even though it's just a decorated hallway, it still had a total cost of $41,400. In total, the lobby cost $2,264,400. The next area is the storage zone, where Playtime Company employees stored toy boxes before shipping them. $48,000. It features several metal shelves, each costing $3,000, along with loading equipment and a robotic arm, which brings the total to about $60,000. So, the total for the storage area was $108,000. Then, the system that connects the storage area with the room. Make-A-Friend is one of the first automated transport systems we see in the factory. It's a conveyor belt about 150 meters long, which could have cost around $48,000 to install. From there we get to the Make-A-Friend room. This was the place where visitors assembled their own toys. The construction of this room could have cost around $128,000 due to its enormous size. But what stands out the most is what's at the back of the room. If you look closely, you'll see huge conveyor belts descending from almost the ceiling and disappearing into the depths of the factory. These belts seem to stretch for miles, as if they connect to hidden areas of Playtime Company. We don't know exactly how many miles they cover, but an industrial conveyor belt costs around $8,000 for every 10 meters. So if there were about 300 meters of belts, that would give an approximate of $240,000 just for these belts. And to this we have to add the overhead costs, apart from the robotic arms, of which we only see 3 mechanical arms, each one between $25,000 and $50,000. And then there's the large assembly machine, a creation of Elliot Ludwig himself. Except that, well, it doesn't exist in real life. But if we had to put a price on it, this machine could easily sell for $300,000. Excluding the millions of dollars it would have cost for research and development, adding everything up, the Make-A-Friend room would have cost approximately $608,000. From here we flee from Huggy Wuggy and come across the second conveyor belt system, which brings the total cost of the belts to $64,000. After escaping from Huggy Wuggy, we arrive at the Catwalk room. This is a vast and seemingly endless section of the factory. The steel structures that make up the catwalks would have cost around $75,000 due to their strength and length. In addition to that, lighting and security systems would be needed, adding others. $15,000. Total cost? $90,000. But what about the cost of excavation and construction? We don't have exact figures, but this place is so huge and so deep that tons and tons of rock had to be extracted and transported. Honestly, I would estimate at least $5 million just in excavation and construction. At the end of this room, we find Poppy's room. To get here, you have to go down a lot of stairs that probably weren't cheap to build. Costing around $20,000, the room itself, including furniture and decoration, would have cost $65,000. And this brings us to the total cost of Chapter 1, $8,391,400. And well, if you thought this was expensive, wait until you see the other chapters. After freeing Poppy and waking up, we continue exploring the next expensive areas of Chapter 2. As we move forward, the first thing we find is the staircase to hell, an endless reinforced metal staircase that descends into the unknown. It's not just a common access, but a structure that could weigh tons. Its estimated construction cost is $50,000. Following these corridors, we realize that they also represent a significant expense. But to not bore you, the approximate cost of all the corridors in Chapter 2 is around $500,000. Because there are simply too many. At the end of one of these corridors, we find a small warehouse with an approximate value of $20,000. From there we get to the luxurious office of Elliot Ludwig. His office is not just any cubicle, but a 50 square meter space with luxury wooden furniture. But the most interesting thing is his hidden security system. Considering all these details, Elliot Ludwig's office costs around $100,000. Then we come to one of the many warehouses of the factory, the large room which covers at least 70 square meters, which gives it a cost of $60,000. From here we come to a network of corridors that function as internal accesses of Playtime Company. Since they are only reinforced tunnels that connect various sections, if we estimate that each one measures approximately 500 meters, the construction of these tunnels would cost around $2,500,000, considering excavation, reinforcements, and construction materials. Further on we find the staff access. Here we find 4 slides approximately 30 meters long each. Each slide could easily cost $20,000, which gives us a total of $80,000 just in accesses. But that's not all. There's also the electricity area. And based on what we saw in Chapter 1, we can estimate a cost of $75,000. After crossing, we finally arrived at the game station, one of the largest areas of the factory. With 1,500 square meters of surface area and a volume of 22,500 cubic meters. It features slides, handrails, spinning wheels, and other interactive games. Building a structure of this size plus the playground would cost around $3 million. Inside the PlayStation, there is also the train, a key means of transportation within the factory. But we will calculate its cost at the end. The molding room, where the grab bag hands are made, has 4 huge industrial machines, one of them similar to the one at the Make-A-Friend station, in addition to a control center that oversees production. The machinery itself represents the bulk of the cost, with an estimated $1.5 million, while the construction of the room and its infrastructure would be around $800,000. Now we move on to one of the most interactive areas, musical memory. The installation of the screens and the technology to make it work would have cost around $700,000. From here, we move on to a more unsettling place, the island of rejected toys. This room does not have as expensive infrastructure as other parts of the factory, so we estimate a cost of $100,000. Continuing our tour of the factory, we come to another game, Hit a Woggy. Building a game of this type, with sensors and hydraulic mechanisms, could cost around $500,000, considering the durability needed to withstand constant use. After leaving the game, we come to a long spiral staircase that takes us back to the game station. This room would only cost around $40,000 to connect all these sections. The factory has an extensive network of corridors and tunnels, including the cart corridors, which cover at least 2 kilometers in length. These passages allow for the rapid transport of materials and personnel using carts on rails. Implementing a cart system over such an extensive stretch would have cost about $2 million. Finally, we arrive at the last minigame, Statues. This space functions as a maze with multiple obstacles, including foam pits and a large slide. Building this type of structure could have cost around $800,000, including the lookout we exited from. Apart from that, we added another $30,000 for the playground equipment and everything it contains inside. We finally arrived at the water treatment plant, a critical area for the factory's operation. At the entrance, we are greeted by a large control panel, followed by a water tank with a capacity of at least 100,000 liters. Building a water treatment system like this would have cost around $1,500,000, considering the filters, pumps, and purification systems. Then we move on to the incineration room, a space built almost entirely of steel and equipped with an industrial incinerator. Incinerators can cost from $100,000 to $450,000 based on size. In total, this incinerator could have cost around $450,000 to $250,000. And if we count all the areas we saw during the chase, we add up $2 million for all the equipment seen around. Finally, we have the industrial shredder that ended the life of Mommy Longlegs, with an approximate price of $250,000. Moving forward is Bay 9, an area full of pipes and equipment, so we estimate a cost of $500,000. Inside the factory, the train was not just a decoration, but a real means of transportation for employees and people. Operating at more than 200 meters deep. To build something like this, first you needed to dig the tunnels, which is not cheap at all. Digging underground tunnels can cost about $30 million per kilometer. And if the train traveled at least 2 kilometers inside the factory, just in tunnels, we would be talking about $60 million. Then we have the steel rails and the electrical power system, which would cost $3 million per kilometer, adding another $6 million in total. Then come the stations and access points, which could cost up to $400,000. Finally, there is the cost of the trains. An underground light rail can cost between $3 million and $10 million per unit. If the factory had at least 2 or 3 operating trains, that would add another $6 million. All of this raises the total cost of Chapter 2 to approximately $89,955,000. After the train accident, the first place we wake up is the garbage compactor, and what a place to regain consciousness after almost dying. And this is not just any garbage compactor. No, no, no. This could easily be the most powerful and expensive garbage compactor in the world. Just the compaction machine would cost around $150,000, as it's huge, and the walls and floor of this area would add another $100,000. But it wasn't all about crushing things. There was also a rest area, bathrooms, and a phone, which would have cost $63,000. To make all this work properly, they probably installed power generators, control panels, and backup systems, which could have cost another $70,000. Adding it all up, just this section of the trash compaction was $383,000. After surviving the huge trash compactor, we moved through the dark tunnel that brought us here, recalling the accident at the end of Chapter 2. This quiet passage takes us to our next stop, the Playcare train mini station. The first thing that catches the eye is a giant statue about 5 meters tall, possibly of Hagi Wagi or Kisi Misi. A figure of that size, considering it's still in good condition after so many years, could have cost around $20,000. The station itself was probably built with durable and high-quality materials, with a total cost of $200,000. In addition, the station has its own rail system, platforms, and train mechanisms, which would have cost $180,000. And finally, there is a security room similar to the one we saw in Chapter 1, so we estimate a cost of $60,000. The total cost of this mini train station is $460,000. After the mini train station, we arrive at Elliot's cable car station. This station is small, but building it along with its equipment would have cost around $200,000. And the entire cable car system could have cost close to $400,000. The total investment for the station, cable car, and installation would be approximately $600,000. Now let's go to the most expensive underground dome in the entire world, Playcare. To start, they had to dig more than 200 meters deep to place this enormous metallic capsule of approximately 3,200 square meters and about 100 meters high. And we're not talking about just any hole, but a precise and reinforced excavation to prevent collapses or leaks, which already greatly increases the cost, approximately to about $10 million. This is built entirely with high-strength metal and maintains a highly advanced ventilation system to renew the air and prevent this from becoming an underground oven. The metal structure alone could have cost $12 million and the ventilation system around $3.5 million. Let's discuss the contents of Playcare. To make the children not feel like they were trapped in a metal dome, they designed a completely immersive environment. We had a traditional playground, a duck pond, artificial grass, trees, and other decorations. Highly detailed wall murals, or an advanced lighting system that simulates daylight and adjusts to appear at night. So, the total interior of Playcare is $290,000. At the center of Playcare is the generation room. The construction cost of this room was approximately $20,000, but what really inflated the budget was the technology. The control panels, security, and monitoring systems had to interconnect all areas of Playcare, adding another $185,000, giving a total of $205,000. The gas production area of Playcare consists of 2 huge rooms of 7,500 cubic meters per room. The construction of these 2 rooms, the machinery, and the energy systems would cost $1,500,000. Now we come to the most expensive areas of Playcare. First, Home Sweet Home, the gigantic mansion that surprisingly still doesn't have a complete map, despite how huge and expensive it is. To start, the house is made of wood, which helps to greatly reduce costs. But taking into account that it is approximately 1,050 square meters with its multiple floors, this construction would be valued at $1,300,000, considering how complicated it would have been to build it to such depth. But the incredible part is the interior. Let's start with the ground floor. After going down the spiral staircase and passing the welcome room, we enter the main hall. From there, we find an electricity room, a laundry room with 8 washing machines, 2 small offices, 4 large offices, 20 single rooms, 2 offices with energy cells, a fully equipped kitchen. But wait until you see what's on the second floor. Going up the spiral staircase, we find a living room with armchairs. 8 huge bedrooms, each with 16 bunk beds, 4 nursery rooms with 10 cribs in each, 2 mini kitchens with medical areas for the children. A mega statue of Bear Hug with advanced security systems worth $25,000. And that's not all. There's also a small attic, a huge maintenance area with tunnels, and an elevator. How much do you think all this cost? Home sweet home. Well, the total cost of this house is $3,500,000. And if you ask me, does this make sense for a facility designed to accommodate at least 150 children and 40 babies? Now let's move on to the school. Building this school was not so cheap. With a total approximate size of 1,000 square meters, the main structure, including walls, roof, foundations, and architectural details, cost around $2,550,000. This school includes 10 classrooms, 3 offices of different sizes, a principal's office, janitorial halls, and a living room. But the real luxury was in the energy system. Here they installed a gigantic turbine to guarantee the electrical supply, with an estimated cost of $1,200,000. Of course, until Miss Delis destroyed it. Total cost of the school $4,420,000. If you thought Playcare was already expensive enough, get ready, because now we're going with Playhouse. This structure was built with cushioned and durable materials, designed for safety. To calculate its cost, let's look at everything it has inside. A maintenance area, 5 game rooms, multiple slides, a large game room with a rotating electric mechanism. In the center, a huge pool, another large game room, an industrial elevator, and a final game room with an exit. Taking all of this into account, the special materials and construction, not counting the areas that were not used, Playhouse would have cost around $5,110,000. Then we headed to the Playcare counselor's office. Its construction was not exactly cheap, just the facade had a cost of $22,500, but with detailed and durable finishes. As we see in the game, the price rose to $67,500. The 2 gigantic statues of Huggy Wuggy were also not cheap. Each one cost about $20,000, adding $40,000 to the total, but what really cost is inside. This building included 20 small offices, 1 large and 1 medium office, an elevator, a reception area, and a huge maintenance area with an industrial elevator. Considering the cost of the previous areas, the Playcare counselor's office could have cost $3,670,000. The Playcare toy store had a simpler design. Inside, the store was not particularly large or luxurious. Estimated total cost $250,000. To get to the final battle against Catnap, we head to the safe room, a security room hidden within the gas production area. It wasn't just a shelter, but an advanced control room for the energy and electricity management of Playcare. To get there, we had to use an industrial elevator at least 50 meters high, which gives us an idea of how high it was. Just the construction of the room would have cost $120,000, and the advanced machinery inside would be around another $400,000. So the total cost of the safe room, including the elevator, is $600,000. After defeating Catnap, we find ourselves in the hatch room. This room has a volume of approximately 85,000 cubic feet. But now, how much would it cost to build something like this? Approximately $120,000. But that's not all, because we also have a huge industrial elevator that takes us to the depths of Chapter 4. This would have a cost of $150,000. And if we add all the technology and mechanisms of this room, we add another $50,000. So the hatch room is at $320,000. With this, the total cost of Chapter 3 of Poppy Playtime is $46,808,000. For Chapter 4, we start by going down this huge industrial elevator, which descends to a depth of about 100 meters. We already calculated the cost of the structure at the end of Chapter 3, but we missed the rail system, motors, electrical system, excavation, and structure. Adding all of this, the total price of the elevator is $1.1 million due to its huge size. Upon exiting the elevator, we arrive at the elevator control room. A medium-sized room that has loading equipment to receive and send materials through carts, which already adds a high cost. Taking this into account, plus the foreman's office, we have a total of $380,000. From here, we enter the caves, a wide system of tunnels that we see throughout Chapter 4. It's possible that these tunnels are still under construction, but that doesn't mean they were free. If we take into account that they cover 2 kilometers in distance, just the excavation would already cost around $10 million. If we add the structural reinforcement, lighting, ventilation, air extraction to avoid the risk of suffocation, and walkways, this system could cost about $16.5 million. Then we arrive at Checkpoint 1A, a special area for construction workers. Being just a small room with an office, this would cost about $30,000. But the most disturbing thing comes when we find the toy graveyard, which is basically a huge dump. Building a warehouse of this magnitude, considering it measures approximately 10,000 square feet, would have cost $3.5 million. After leaving this dump, we head to the prison's loading station. This small area could cost $230,000, but here we have to take into account the train that transports the cells to the prison. It's not as detailed as the one at Game Station, but it has enough power to move all the cells. With its station plus the train, we estimate a cost of $800,000. After leaving, we headed to the Playtime Company prison. The main structure is made up of multiple cells, at least 50, but these are not common cells. They have high security systems, plumbing, and heavy reinforcements. According to Riley's notes, we estimate that one of these cells could have cost $8,000. In addition, it has a control room and an employee area with beds, tables, and lockers. Just this first area of the prison had an approximate cost of $1 million. From here we get to the central area, which has 5 offices and a control zone. Being a simple area, we give it a price of $200,000. After this, we enter another section of the prison, similar to the first, with cells, staff area, and control area, which leaves us another $1 million. Before reaching the containment area, we cross through several stewardship rooms and small service areas at a cost of $80,000. But the entrance to the containment area looks like something out of a science fiction movie. If we calculate all the technology and hydraulic systems, we would end up with a cost of $600,000. From here, we get to the containment area, which are basically cells designed to study experiments, with tempered glass walls to prevent leaks. This type of structures require highly resistant materials and advanced security systems. This area has 7 high security cells, which leaves us with a cost of $5 million. Our first confrontation with Yarnaby occurs in a warehouse with a cost of $50,000. Right after, we head to a huge server room, which must have been quite expensive due to its cooling systems and structure. But we must also consider each server's cost. These don't seem to be top of the line, so each one of them would cost $7,000. And approximately, this room has 1,400 servers. Just for those servers, it would be $9.8 million, plus construction and installation, the total cost would be $11,370,000. Something we have to mention is that the prison also includes the Pianosaur enclosure, which is basically a huge metal box with an observation platform. Building a containment box like this would cost approximately $250,000. Then we find interrogation rooms and offices, approximately 15 rooms in total, which adds up to $400,000. After following Dowie, we finally arrive at the prison yard. This yard has watchtowers, but instead of being an open-air space, it's a huge enclosed structure. Building a space like this would cost around $250,000. Then we find more offices $60,000, a small warehouse $30,000, and a maintenance area with gears that would cost $50,000. From here, we get to a large industrial kitchen of $300,000, and before getting to Safe Heaven, we come across the bathrooms that would cost $80,000. After escaping from prison, we continue to Safe Heaven. These types of facilities usually have reinforced doors, independent ventilation systems, and basic supplies. It includes several rooms, a bathroom, and a medical area. If we assume it's the size of an industrial shelter, its construction would cost around $1.5 million. And something they definitely couldn't forget are the sewers. These structures require reinforced concrete and large capacity pipes with at least 1 kilometer of tunnels. It could cost approximately $10 million. And let's not forget the classic Playtime company elevators, which cost another $30,000. Now let's move on to the wastewater treatment plant. It has a large control panel and a tank of at least 100,000 liters of water. And if you've ever wondered why factories prefer to dump their wastewater into rivers and lands instead of treating it, well, the cost of this plant from Chapter 4 will give you the answer. Having a plant like this is not cheap at all. To start with, the combination of its structure and its tanks can cost up to $1,150,000. And the filtration systems, chemical and biological treatment in addition to the water pumps would add $1,250,000. So the total cost of this installation could reach $3 million. By the way, the fines for dumping contaminated wastewater are much cheaper than this machinery, so now you know why? From here we move on to No Man's Land, which apart from seeming like an area that connects with Dr. Sawyer's lair, also appears to be a power plant. This makes sense, as players' goal here is to restore the machinery's energy. The area is too large, indicating that it probably supplied energy to all of Dr. Sawyer's laboratory machines. Just the gigantic turbine that player activates would cost around $5 million. If we take into account the infrastructure and all the machinery necessary to support these amounts of energy, the total cost of this area would be $25 million. Now we get to the transport capsules to the laboratory. There is nothing in real life that can be directly compared to them. But taking into account the other elevators, each one would cost $25,000. Plus $30,000 for building the room, leaving us with $80,000, considering the second capsule. After descending, we found a control room worth $40,000. Then we got to the cold storage, an area where the liquid nitrogen ducts are regulated. We can see a lot of machinery and sturdy pipes, designed to withstand extremely low temperatures, possibly made of cryogenic material. Installing these pipes would cost an additional $500,000, plus the room, which is quite large, adding another $500,000. To this we add the cooling area, which is practically a huge freezer, with a cost of another $500,000. After crossing the cold storage, we reach the secondary laboratory, which is a network of operating rooms, where modifications to the experiments were made. Each room would need advanced surgical equipment, operating tables, and other medical equipment. The costliest element here is the medical equipment, not the construction. If we consider at least 5 operating rooms, each equipped with surgical material, the cost of this area could reach $12 million. Then we enter the containment area, where the nightmare critters are confined in special cages. Here we find approximately 10 gigantic cages. So in total, this whole room could have cost $650,000 if we take into account the machines in which Harley Sawyer forces us to eliminate a nightmare critter. After this, we come across several control areas and elevators, which would raise the cost to another $650,000. But the most impressive thing is when we get to Dr. Sawyer's headquarters. This is a room where Harley Sawyer's digital consciousness is located. It has approximately 300 computers and a large machine where his brain is located. For a system with so many servers, the cost of this installation could have been $3 million. Plus another $5 million for the machine that stores Sawyer's brain. Moving forward, we find another cable car line. Taking into account the cost of the cable car from Chapter 3, this could have cost $600,000. Before reaching the safe haven, we find another small storage area with a cost of $40,000. The generator room has a high-capacity industrial generator, which could cost about $500,000. From here, we head to the foundation, which is a huge room full of pipes that connects with several tunnels and has a control room. Given its size and specialized piping, as we saw earlier, its construction could cost $700,000, including the small offices we found around it. The mining well is an incomplete construction, but the approximate cost of that work would be around $4 million, including its size and reinforced structures. After this, we arrive at the place where we defeated Dowie, which appears to be a huge hydraulic dam, with a cost of $800,000. Further on, we find another storage area with 2 trucks, which could have cost $100,000. When we arrive at the hideout with Poppy and Kissy Missy, we come across the B6 shelf vent block, which is part of the air duct system, which we will calculate at the end of the video. And finally, we arrive at the entrance of the laboratory, a wide corridor with a self-sustaining poppy garden. Just for this area, we would be looking at a cost of $800,000, but how much did the entire laboratory cost? We still don't know exactly how big this laboratory is, but if we assume it's similar to the Russian laboratories, it could have experimentation rooms, sample storage chambers, control rooms, checkpoints, biotechnology and genetics laboratories, among others. All of this would leave us with an approximate cost of $50 million. Now, the big question, how much did the entire 4th chapter cost? The total amounts to $168,270,000. But we still have to consider the overhead costs, like the drainage, the pipes, the electrical system, and the ventilation. Just for the pipes and the drainage, the cost would be approximately $50 million, considering the huge effort that was needed to connect all the areas. The same goes for ventilation and heating, adding another $50 million. Otherwise, they would have died from heat or lack of oxygen. And what about electricity? Elliot could have spent around $40 million, considering the miles of wiring and installations necessary to power the entire factory. And well, now comes the strangest part of all this. How much did the Playtime co-excavations cost? With all the information I provided to ChatGPT about each area of Playtime Company, it concluded that the underground part of the factory measures approximately 2 square miles, which is exactly double the size of Disney in California. To excavate and reinforce all of this, it probably took at least $780 million, and this being extremely frugal. However, it is very likely that during their excavations they found giant natural caves, just like Playcare seems to be. In the whole chapter. Nevertheless, they had to bolster the areas and perform further excavations. So the costs remain almost the same as we calculated while analyzing each of these chapters, saving the company a great fortune. But now the moment of truth. How much did it cost to build the entire Playtime Co-factory? If we add up all the chapters, plus the pipes, ventilation, and electricity, the total price of the entire Playtime Company factory would be $453,424,400. And it's likely that we missed some things that we didn't calculate in the video, like the chimneys and other areas that can be seen from outside the factory. In addition, we also didn't include the sections that appear in Project Playtime, so it's possible that the Playtime Company factory may have reached $500 million. But now you tell me, friends, could you imagine that the factory would cost so much?